In this video, we're taking a look at the tools you need to make your own gear. These are the essentials in my opinion, and really all you need to make some great gear. All products mentioned will be linked in the description below if you want to check them out. First off, obviously you'll need a sewing machine. If you have access to any sewing machine, then just use that. It might work out great. If you do need to buy, I recommend the mechanical Singer Heavy Duty series. Probably the most commonly used machine in this community. It's by no means perfect. I haven't always been friends with mine, but I have successfully completed over 100 projects on it so far, so at the end of the day, it's a capable machine, and it's very affordable. Hard to beat for the price. I use 3 presser feet with this machine. The universal standard foot and the zipper foot both came included with the Singer. Then also purchased a 1/4 inch straight stitch foot. I like that it's a bit more narrow, and if I line up the edge of the fabric I'm sewing with the edge of the presser foot, I get a perfect 1/4 inch stitch, which is typically my preference. I like to use Gutermann Mara 50 for most bag making projects, a nice and strong polyester thread. Based off your choice of thread, you need to look up the appropriate size needle, and I typically pair the Mara 50 with a size 16 needle, which I found to cost me a lot less hassle than the size 14. Next up, a thread snip is very useful for cutting threads nice and close. A dedicated snip does a way better job at this than scissors. If you have it, it'll be your most used tool. Unfortunately, chances are you'll need a seam ripper to fix a mistake at some point, or maybe all the time. I recommend the larger ones over the tiny ones. Okay, rulers. This is an area where I recommend you splurge and get several right away. Get at least a short one and a really long one. And if you can, get them in metal rather than plastic. Look out for a scale that goes all the way to the end and doesn't stop just short of the end, like this. This is annoying. You'll also want either a framing square or a see-through quilting ruler like this. Honestly, I say get both. These are game changers for marking fabric. Markers. I typically mark fabric using a fine point silver Sharpie, simply because it marks all fabrics really accurately without hassle. One big drawback to this is that it's a permanent marker, so sometimes you'll want to use something that only makes a temporary mark. For this you can use the humble Tailor chalk, which works reasonably well, but in my opinion the best option is a chalk liner, which I find marks a bit more precisely. On the end of this pen is a little wheel that dispenses chalk powder. For then cutting fabric after marking it, you'll want a good pair of scissors. Keeping scissors sharp is absolutely key to be able to cut technical fabrics designed to be really tough, which is why I highly recommend keeping a pair exclusively for fabric. If you want to level up your cutting game, you'll want to invest in a rotary cutter. This is essentially a round blade which you run along something like a ruler to get really nice straight cuts. This is especially useful for cutting elastic materials. To use the rotary cutter, you'll want to pair that with a self-healing cutting mat. And this is an instance where bigger really is better. I recommend getting a fairly large mat right off the bat. You can also get fabric weights or anything heavy that help you hold down fabric or hold down the ruler as you cut. Next, you'll want to keep a lighter handy to burn the edges of webbing, loose ends of thread, and fraying fabric. I find that a regular Bic works just fine. Then there are a few things you'll want to get to help you hold layers of fabric together as you're feeding them through the machine. Your go-to for this should be these clips. These are superior to pinning because they are a lot easier to clip on and off, and importantly, they don't poke unnecessary holes in your fabric, which might be intending to be waterproof. Unfortunately, you can only clip the edges of things, which is why you will likely at some point also need to revert to using pins. So it's best to keep a few around. Lastly, for sewing elastic materials, I highly recommend picking up some Wonder Tape. Regular viewers of the channel know that I'm a huge fan, and I typically use up a ton of it in almost every project. It's a double-sided tape that makes sewing elastics super easy, which can otherwise be a huge pain as the materials tend to stretch as they go through the machine. With this tape in the seam, you sew right through it and it temporarily prevents the fabric from stretching. The wonder part is that it washes away with water and does not affect the stretch of the elastic in the end. I typically don't bother washing it out, but rather I just leave it in there, perfectly happy in the knowledge that my gear will only become lighter first time it rains. That's it. That's all you need. Did I miss something? Be sure to let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching.